there is really almost universal loathing of the division and the degree to which the parties play on those divisions. And you heard Barack Obama really turn the end of that speech into the old Obama, there's not a red America or a blue America, there's a United States of America.
Isn't that hopelessly naive?
It may be naive in how people vote. I agree with you. It is not naive in how people feel. And what both Obamas did last night is start, especially Michelle, with feelings. Michelle didn't say, let me make a structured argument to you about economic policy.
Talked about her mom.
Talked about her mom. She talked about the decency of the people who raised us all and how they saw the world, and they may have been oppressed and blocked off in certain ways, but they didn't complain. They went ahead and got on with it, and they didn't whine about their problems, right? They helped themselves and especially others and their children, and in those actions found meaning, right? I mean, this is universal language of the kind Donald Trump doesn't understand. And again, I think the Democrats have done a brilliant job of bringing their coalition together, but their coalition is 49%, maybe, right? And Trump's is maybe 45, and then there's a few percentages in there, and maybe the Democrats could squeak it out with what they're doing right now. But if they do what Obama suggested, if they do what I think Clinton is going to suggest, I think they have a chance to at the very least get that extra oomph to ensure a victory, and maybe more.
She could not afford a crap speech tomorrow night.
No.
She's coming after all these powerhouses, right? And all these formers who sort of, and I don't know if you picked up on this, Paul, but like something about not being in office anymore and not being at the White House anymore. The Obamas were a little different. They just came across differently.
Yeah.
They're more relaxed.
Yeah.
I mean, they're rich, right? And I'm not mad at them about it. Be rich, happy people. But they've lost a caustic edge that they used to have.
Sure.
They don't have that anymore. Anyway, she's coming in with a bit of a caustic edge because she's not only in office but seeking office.
Yes.
So anyway, but what I'm saying is that there will be a contrast, and I feel like this momentum that the Democrats are enjoying is tenuous, and a mistake would blow it up. Yeah. One of the things that Michelle Obama said yesterday, which was really smart, talking to her base, saying they're going to make mistakes. And if you sit there and you whine and you wring your hands and say, oh my God, I need perfection, you're useless. Please, get over it. They are going to make mistakes. And it is a knife's edge. I don't think anyone who tells you they know who's going to win right now is fooling themselves and you. We don't know who's going to. The people who are going to decide this election do not know themselves if they're going to go vote. They're not even paying attention. They're not listening to us right now.
And if they tell you as a pollster, yes, I'm going to vote in November, they don't know.
No. And you can't even bank on it.
Yeah, they don't know what they're going to do. So it really is unknowable.
And I imagine that people listening to us right now can't even imagine if they don't know someone like that.
No, your audience is absolutely going to vote.
Oh, they probably already voted.
Yeah, right. And remember, the voting is not in November. The voting starts
next month.
Yeah. So this campaign season, at least for the Democrats, is literally a matter of weeks.
I'm with you, though, about the speeches, and I think you and I have talked about this before in your capacity as previously writing State of the Union speeches. For me, State of the Union and convention speeches are the best political speech making. Well, you really get to see what people are made of.
I co-authored President Clinton's speech at the 2000 convention also. And that was an experience because, as I wrote about in the magazine last week, there's really only been three times, now four with Biden, where a president spoke at the convention of where his vice president was the nominee, right? A third of all vice presidents have become president, but only 4 times has a president spoken at the convention of where the vice president was the nominee. And each time there were tensions between the president and the vice president, right? Ike didn't even mention Richard Nixon's name. That's how delicate it was. You'll remember George H.W. Bush came out and talked about wanting to be kindler and gentler. That was to get out from under the harsh reputation of Reaganism.
And the Reagans didn't like him.
Not really. I mean, the speech Reagan gave was a brilliant speech. I went and reread it. It is really something. And it worked. He was reelected. And then, obviously, with Clinton and Gore, there was major tension
Big
right
tension.
there, which I found myself right in the middle of. But, Bill Clinton, like Reagan, gave a speech, and I think like Biden, gave a speech that was a full recitation of his administration's accomplishments, but also put Vice President Gore at the center of it and made a case for Gore. And, you can ask why Gore didn't win. Gore will say it was Monica Lewinsky. Most of us in the
think it was Al Gore.
Think it was Al Gore, not running on his record.
Or maybe he did win. We don't even know.
Well, there's that.
Right?
There's that. The Supreme Court decided he wasn't going to win. But the Vice President Harris got a good send-off from Biden. She got, fantastic setup from Michelle and many others, Barack Obama, and tonight we're going to hear from President Clinton, and we'll see what he does.
Paul Glastris, editor-in-chief of Washington Monthly, former speechwriter for President Clinton. You can follow him at Glastris. Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you for having me.
Great to see you.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you.
Good to see you, buddy.
You bet. We'll miss you tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. Have fun, though.
Thank you.
Take care.
When you swing it out,
How are you?
chair's a little slippery. Be careful.
Yeah, slippery.
Yeah, I see what you mean by slipping. I can see myself ending up in the next booth.
We got a big speech to give. We don't want to be the people that screw you up.
Is tonight the night?
And if I'm wrong, the Lieutenant Governor was rehearsing this afternoon, right?
Say again?
You were rehearsing this afternoon?
Yeah, I already rehearsed.
Can I have some water
I'll get one.
when you have a chance? Oh, pictures.
Do you want a water?
No, I'm good. Fully hydrated. I've been drinking beer all day. Kidding. Does this get louder?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I hear you fine. Okay.
It's so nice to see you in person.
Yeah, no kidding. So where do you guys produce from? DC?
DC, yeah.
Okay.
We're right over by CNN.
Okay. Yeah, I spend lots of time hanging out in that neck of the woods.
Thank you so much.
So any fun guests today? Any deep, dark secrets?
No secrets revealed. I have Terry McAuliffe coming up, though.
Okay.
I think after you. The rundown is so fluid because people maybe can't get in or
Right,
they're running
yeah,
late.
security's tough.
All right, here we go. And the man himself, Jeff Duncan, was Georgia's 12th lieutenant governor. He joins me now. Hi, Governor.
Howdy. Great to be here.
I got to tell you stand out a little bit in this crowd. You do.
Yeah, it's not because I'm real tall or anything. I think I might be the only Republican in this room right now, but there's others here. No worries.
Yeah. Oh, we had Mayor Giles in your seat yesterday talking about giving a preview of his big speech. And we know Adam Kinzinger is going to be speaking later this week. Yeah, you're not alone here.
Yeah, somebody asked me yesterday, they said, are you surprised that there's any Republicans here? And I said, no, this whole fever's kind of been going at it since hours after the 2020 election. It's just not a lot of Republicans are willing to get out in front and say it in public. And that makes me a little bit angry, but it is what it is, right? I'm just
They're getting swatted and threatened, and their kids are getting death threats.
Yeah,
I get it.
I fit in all those categories, unfortunately.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because it's politics, and it shouldn't, not to be all high-minded and squishy about it, but shouldn't it just be a debate of ideas rather than death threats and swatting?
Well, we're kind of getting a taste of our own medicine in that we're not solving a whole lot of problems. Our political system, the left or the right, right? I don't want to say anybody's got to run on this show here. It's we're not solving any problems. We're racking up debt. We got geopolitical issues. We've got economic concerns. I mean, this stuff is stacking up, and until we get an adult in the room that can show up and just steady, kind of lead with a steady hand, we're going to have problems.
But you think that could be Kamala Harris?
Yeah, look, I'm going to talk to the convention tonight, and I'm going to say I don't agree with 100% of her policies. I'm a lifelong conservative, but I do think she's a steadier hand to lead this country than Donald Trump ever could be.
Yeah, indeed. We Democrats are making much about his negative rhetoric today. He told Hugh Hewitt that our nation is going to hell. Seems dyspeptic to me. It seems a little bellicose.
Yeah, look, this is all. Even the strongest supporters of Donald Trump have to admit that Kamala Harris and the Democrats have done an unbelievable job the last 4 or 5 weeks, transitioning from a horrific moment in that debate and transitioning quickly behind Kamala Harris, the fundraising, the just everything have got them in a position where they have a legitimate chance to win this thing. And for me, as a lifelong Republican, I hope they win, and then I hope we go figure out how to get our game back in play as Republicans.
And to maybe go back to the old days of what the Republican Party used to be that you and I have talked about.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've got this acronym called my pet project. I've mentioned it to you before, policy, empathy, and tone. I mean, the ultimate winning strategy, if we would have had a candidate other than Donald Trump that would have been able to talk about the policies around the economy and around, international issues and the border, and then use some empathy to kind of build the tent and use a tone that invites and encourages, we'd be up by 10 points right now. But we're not, because we got Donald Trump, who's a boat anchor on every election he's ever touched.
You didn't spend that long in public office. Were you in the state ledge before lieutenant governor?
I was a state rep for 5 years, and then I was the lieutenant governor for 4 years.
So, I mean, that's a good time. But did you ever think you'd be speaking to a Democratic convention? I mean, it's such a fish out of water story.
Yeah, I told my wife the other night, I don't remember this being on our bingo card when I begged her to run for office for the first time, not knowing a thing about politics. But, this journey's taken us all kinds of places. I could kind of felt the tsunami of Donald Trump coming during his 4 years in office, and then when 2020 hit in the election, it was an absolute confirmation that he was wrong for the country and a threat to democracy. And we've been committed to this journey of trying to get this party back in gear. But no, I did not see this coming. But you know what? If this is what this moment in time calls for me to do, so be it.
Trump loves a convert. So do the Democrats.
Yeah, no kidding. I often, this sounds like a joke, but it's serious. I got a 14-year-old who's been a Republican longer than Donald Trump has. And he loves it when I say it, too.
That's fantastic. Is he looking forward to voting someday?
Yes, he is. I've got 3 boys, 22, 18, and 14. So it is a live wire. In fact, I'm leaving here going to Dublin, Ireland to watch my middle son play football for Georgia Tech against Florida State in Dublin, Ireland on Saturday.
Oh, have you been to Dublin?
I have not. My wife and one of my sons is on their way right now.
Oh God, you're going to love it.
So they're going to watch the convention from the air. So we'll hopefully they have some sort of connection.
I had the UK ambassador on earlier, Karen Pierce, and she was she's at the convention, and she went to the one in Milwaukee too, and she was talking about they show it on TV in England, our conventions. Yeah. They don't have anything like that there. But people are very interested.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole world's wanting us to get this right. I mean, outside of a handful of countries, I mean, if we don't get this right, their futures are in jeopardy too, right? How we create economic trade with Asia, how we deal with Ukraine, how we deal with the overall European picture. I mean, these are massive issues that if we just get a reckless fool to show up every day whenever he wants and do whatever he wants, we have a problem on our hands that will show up each and every day in every one of these issues.
How is the race still so close with what you just described?
I think I've been talking about this for 3+ years. I think it's a 45% and 45% on each side. No matter what happens, hell or high water, they're going to vote D or R. This 10% in the middle is actually persuadable. I think they're hard to poll. I think that's the grouping that doesn't want to be honest until they walk in that box. I think they finally have a little bit of air cover. The biggest excuse I heard when I first endorsed Joe Biden as a Republican was he's too old, and they had a legitimate issue with that. I don't have a defense to that. The debate confirmed our worst fears, and now they don't have that excuse anymore. I think you're going to continue to watch these states break more and more towards Kamala Harris, and that 10% in the middle is going to become more defined.
Tell me about your state, the great state of Georgia, because it looked like Trump had a lock on it. Now it's more competitive.
He was a runaway freight train before the Kamala Harris twist of fate. And almost overnight, two things happened. One, the race got a lot closer between him and Kamala Harris. And then two, he came down there and just did what Donald Trump does and berated one of the most conservative and best governors in our state's history, at least modern history. And because he just can't help himself. He's a petulant child. And so, look, I think now you look at this, it is razor-thin margins on either side. I do think Georgia probably does end up breaking for Kamala Harris because Donald Trump's going to keep being Donald Trump, and Georgia doesn't really truly like the real Donald Trump.
Yeah, interesting. But they weren't going to go for Joe Biden.
No, it was a tough sell. I certainly have heard a lot more folks from around my inner circle that have said, hey, this is an easier pill to swallow as a Republican now that Kamala Harris is in there. So we'll see how it breaks.
Which is interesting because I don't think it's ever an easy pill for Republicans to swallow, on issues of life, economy, things like that. I don't think it's ever really easy.
Yeah, and look, I hope to be doing this with you at the RNC in 2028, right? I hope to be a voice of influence for the Republican Party. We got a lot of work to do between here and there, and one of these steps is beating Donald Trump, proving that he is a loser by nature, and figuring out who's going to be the next group of individuals to lead the party forward.
Have you been here all week, Governor?
I got in yesterday, and like I said, I'm leaving early tomorrow to go to Ireland. I've got a really good excuse. It's a long way from Chicago to Ireland, by the way.
It is, but there's probably a direct flight, though.
Not that I found.
Oh,
or
really?
maybe not that I could afford.
There's that. So have you been hitting parties? I know you got to do a lot of CNN.
No, I haven't done any parties. I did some CNN work last night, went and ate by myself at a little Italian restaurant in downtown Chicago, got to bed early, got up early. I'm like an old curmudgeon.
Right.
I was begging people to open up the coffee machine before they were ready to open this morning.
Because you just needed that coffee.
Yeah.
And what was it, like 5 a.m.? And you were out.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to figure out time zones, right? I don't know where I'm at.
We're in Central Time, Governor.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder. I'm late for my speech. I got to go. Just kidding.
So again, tonight, what can we expect?
A message directly to those Republicans and independents that are watching at home. And by the way, there's going to be millions of Republicans and independents watching, hoping to see something that gives them some air cover to do something. And I'm simply going to focus my message directly on them. I don't need to tell anybody anything to talk them out of voting for Donald Trump in this room. They're already set. But this is a message. And it's just to say, look, let's be Americans in this election. And just because I vote for Kamala Harris doesn't make me a Democrat. It just makes me a patriot.
Jeff Duncan. He was the 12th Lieutenant Governor of the great state of Georgia. He's speaking tonight from the convention. What a pleasure to see you. Thank you so much for
glad
joining
to be
me.
here. Thanks.
Take care. All right, quick break, and I'll be back with former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick. You're listening to Sirius XM. That was fabulous. Thank you. No.
I love being on with you.
I really appreciate your coming on. You really add a lot to the show. Yeah, me too.
All right, have a great convention.
Thanks.
Are you watching it? Where's your seats at?
We're up in a skybox. I anchor all night, so I know. Yeah, I got
because they serve drinks up there.
No. Good guess though. Hi.
Shakia is on next with the governor. The governor, as soon as he gets here, will join her.
Oh, fabulous.
She's right here.
Oh, Shakia, hi. Hi, it's so nice to meet you. I was reading about you. And
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
oh, of course.
This is my first convention, so this
Oh, all right. We got to talk about that.
special.
We got to talk about that.
Sit down. Can I scoot it down?
No worries.
No.
No.
But it's a mess. It's a whole thing. But
Okay.
Yeah, be careful with that
I'm
chair.
not.
I know.
I'm not one of
I
you.
know.
These chairs are pretty
It lacks dignity. I've been
I'm not one of you.
I've been flying around all week.
Okay, so when Governor Patrick gets here, we'll slide him into the conversation.
Okay. The beekeeper will be joining us.
You want him over here, or you want me to move over?
No. You stay.
Okay.
We'll put him in.
Stand up.
Now, is it 1,000 women or 1K women?
1,000 women.
1,000 women. Okay.
10 seconds.
You can stand if that's
Yeah,
easier.
yeah,
Okay.
I'm like-
Totally fine. I know that leather
It's too
skirt and that
hot.
chair
Yeah, exactly. It's
is a
too
bad match.
Got it. Okay.
Well, thank you so much for being with me. And just a reminder, if you want to chat with me and share with me your thoughts about what you're seeing and hearing from the convention, you can find me on Blue Sky. It's a Twitter knockoff, and it's free, and bonus, no Nazis. So go ahead and join, and you can find me there at Julie Mason. I'm so pleased to welcome to the show Shakia Cherry Donaldson. She's founder and executive director of 1,000 Women Strong. It's a national organizing hub for black women, built by black women. We're going to be joined in just a few minutes by Deval Patrick, the former governor of Massachusetts. But while I have you here to myself, tell me about your organization.
Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Shakia Cherry Donaldson, and in 2020, after being an organizer since I was 19, I've done the doors, I've done canvassing, all of the above. I was working for a program that saw the labor or the results of the labor, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, we knocked 1,000 doors. Oh, we sent out 10,000 postcards, but nobody was talking about the actual organizing that was behind all of that labor and all of that work, and particularly honoring the legacy of black women organizing in this country. We have been at the forefront of every major movement in this country.
Saved democracy, I would say, roughly.
We try.
From time to time.
We try. So,
did you find you had a knack for that kind of organizing?
I did. So I said I was a rabble rouser in high school. I was an activist.
What?
I was an anti-war
Where did you grow
activist.
up?
New York City. I came from a union family.
Which war? War in Iraq?
War in Iraq.
It's not a popular war.
No, not at all. And so to see that progression, then go to school, travel the world, come back, and then
wait, travel the world? Why? How? For
how?
what?
So went to Korea to teach English in 2008.
Wow.
Because I graduated in the middle of a global recession.
They don't get a lot of black women in Korea.
They do not. But there is a kinship in a community because of black expats from the Korean War.
Ah, interesting.
So while they did not get a lot of black women teachers, there was a fondness and I would say a kinship around black American GIs that came to help fight for South Korea.
That must have made it nice.
Yeah, it was. So I was there for 2 years. Then I went to Australia and got my master's degree. Yep, at the University of Sydney. And then
did you love Sydney?
I did.
What
it was
amazing.
It is amazing. And then I came back and went straight to the South and working for the Children's Defense Fund under Marion Wright Edelman, who's the founder of Mississippi Freedom Summers. And so coming back into this work, I knew that I was bringing a level of experience and a broader out view of the world, I guess I would say, about how we get to shape our democracy. Organizing, when I first started, was such a resistance. We're fighting against, we're fighting back. We don't like what they're doing, so we're fighting. But in this season, and why I wanted to create 1,000 Women Strong, is because we could fight to create.
Right, fight in the affirmative.
Right.
For something, not against something.
And it
must
can be
a
something
total
new.
switch.
We don't even have to know what it is yet to have it. We don't have to have it down perfectly to know that we are striving for something bigger and better.
But you knew that it worked.
I knew it worked.
And you knew how to put it together.
Oh, yeah. And so we were all at home. I mean, really, in 2020. So I started to organize women right where we were on our couches. I pulled money out of my own account and did a digital campaign. Over 30,000 women signed up between September and November.
Toward what end? What was the pitch?
Are you here to build a more beautiful future for you and your family?
That
fantastic. Was it. That was the pitch. Are you here to build a more beautiful future for you and your family? Sign up. Learn more. And then the runoff came home. We are many of my team are alumni of Abrams 2018. So when the Georgia runoff came for Ossoff and Warnock home, I wrote my first field program under the organization.
Wow!
And in 6 weeks, we knocked over 40,000 doors.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
We've been talking this week about how door knocking seems quaint and old-fashioned and low-tech, but it is so effective. Mm-hmm. Tell us about your experience door knocking.
For sure. This year, we're expected to have over 1,000 canvassers across our 8 states, which include Pennsylvania, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, and Michigan. We are slated to knock over 600,000 doors and talk to over 1.2 million people. It is our primary form of voter contact. It is all paid programming because, like, again, in 2020, everything got highlighted as hazardous work. And, someone going and putting themselves out and having to know the pitch and know what they're talking about in their community. It is paid work. It is organized labor.
Yeah.
And so we're honoring that and hiring Black men and women across the country to work directly in their community to mobilize the vote.
Have you found in your recruiting that people want to get involved? They want an opportunity?
Oh, yes.
And when you say, here's an opportunity, they're like, I've been wanting to get involved.
I'm not going to hold you. That that Sunday afternoon at 2:30 when I called it the Beyonce moment of politics, world stop. Okay, but like everybody was on my phone. Like it was a switch. People were disengaged. People didn't feel called to participate in what they saw. But then when it all shifted, I mean, we have hundreds of volunteers now.
I bet.
Signing up for house parties, postcard parties, what else? Doing text banking, right? Like, yes, we have things to do. Yes, come help. Come in, help. Let's do it.
The organization is called 1,000 Women Strong. We're talking with Shakia Cherry Donaldson. She's founder and executive director. So this is your first convention?
It is. So I was at home 4 years ago. It was virtual, but I was watching from home like everyone else. And I just couldn't have imagined being here today, 4 years later, head down, doing the work. And now we have an opportunity to expand our mission and our voice and like build our capacity. We're currently in 8 states. By 2026, we plan to be in 18. So this is our opportunity to meet partners that we're fostering new relationships.
So is politics, I mean, I know what you were doing before seems sort of politics adjacent, but this is elected office work. Right. Is it kind of different?
I say, so there are 3 prongs to our strategy, right? So there's elected officials, getting good folks elected that believe in our policy, supporting sustainable, life-changing policy that electeds can then get done. But then it's also the community day-to-day, right? The 365, and people use the example because, I come from an old school, but if you know how to get a stop sign in your community, you know how to get a president elected.
That's such a great point. It is the exact same skill set. It really is. Yeah.
So, so by working in Community 365 on community sustainable issues, or even again, you don't always have to be fighting against something, but a community vision, watching that come into life, then people are able to translate what they're doing locally into the national or even statewide broader frame.
Oh, that's so interesting. All right, so tell me what you're doing here.
So this week we're hosting a series of events with Black women from across the country, and the Collective PAC and several other leaders to make sure that we are still raising money. It's 75, 76. I lost track of the tracker. 75 days left.
Oh yeah. I don't.
75
it could
days
be 5. Shakia, it could be like 1,000. I don't know.
No, the countdown is real. But so we're here raising money and getting the word out about why door knocking, especially in this season, we feel all the energy, we feel the excitement, but it has to be transferred directly on the ground into the work. So excited to be here.
All right, the man has joined us.
Sorry,
sir. A little bit, but you know what? Shakia was holding it down. Deval Patrick.
Always does.
Right?
Always does.
Former 2-term governor of Massachusetts, current David R. Gergen Professor of the Practice of Public Leadership at the Harvard Kennedy School, also a gentleman farmer and a beekeeper. I got to throw that in. Governor, it's so nice to see you. How are you?
To see you. I'm very well.
Welcome.
I'm breathless, trying to get around this.
Right.
This shindig is no small thing.
Right, and these are probably a lot of people you haven't seen in a bit.
In many cases, and therefore, if there isn't a way to get through, I was saying to Swanee, who's with me,
Swanee.
that I forgot my hat. I should have had my hat to
Did
get
you have
down
to wait
the
in the
hall.
line?
No, people wanted to say hello.
Oh, right.
It's nice. How are you?
I'm well.
It's
so good
wonderful to see you. She's doing meaningful work.
Man, she was telling me about it. Yeah, 1,000 women. I mean, that seems you're kind of lowballing it. Seems like more than 1,000. I gotta think.
Yeah. When creating it, I said, "What is a critical mass? What does it feel like when you see something coming and you know you cannot ignore it?" And I said, "Have you ever seen 1,000 black women come at you at the same time?"
Everyone talking at once,
exactly.
right?
And to me, it embodies what it can be from local to national in relational organizing, right? Because you can organize 1,000 people in your town or 1,000 people in your county. It doesn't have to always be multi-state or federal work, right? So I do think in creating power in a critical mass, you don't need 1 million people. Can you get 1,000?
Right. And Governor, I have to think that the kind of groups that we're talking about, like 1,000 women, have huge impact.
They do, and they do beyond politics. I know we're talking about politics, but there is such a hunger I think we all have as human beings, and maybe especially in these times, for a sense of community and connection. There's a profound loneliness and disaffection that an awful lot of people feel. It expresses itself in politics in ways, Julie, you and I have talked about before. I don't think the political dynamic is actually Democrat-Republican so much as it is inside or outside. And most people, you see this, right, when you're knocking doors, Shakia, and most people feel left out and left behind. So when somebody comes and says, don't just, I'm knocking on your door to get you to vote in the next election cycle, but I'm knocking on your door to help build a relationship that lasts. And we're going to do stuff beyond GOTV, getting out the vote. We're going to do stuff in between cycles. We're going to do stuff to figure out how we advocate once we win with our elected officials for the stuff we need in this place, or how we do stuff with the business community, the civic community. And I think the operative point here is community, and why I think this work is so critical.
And it seems often when people are knocking on doors, they're asking the resident, "What do you care about? Like, what's important to you?"
That's right.
And you're taking notes, and you're going to follow up. And this person's concerned about housing, and you're going to, right, and that's like a follow up.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the next time you going to the housing authority for something, you know exactly who to call and say, "You cared about housing, and we're working on this housing initiative. Would you like to join us? Would you like to help us? Would you like to learn more at capacity?" So right, it comes directly to the person's what they need and what they care about, not the other way around.
And I think, you're listening for consensus points. You hear about housing over here and the price of groceries over there, and then housing in the next 4 houses, and you start to get a sense, housing is
it's a thing,
it's
right?
a thing, right?
And maybe it's not showing up in polls,
right,
but you're hearing about it anecdotally.
That's right. The other part that I don't think shows up in polls, and I'm not a pollster, and I'm a little skeptical. I love pollsters, but I'm a little skeptical of polling methodology. There is, it turns out, and I will say this from personal experience, there's actually electoral power in the gesture shown and the respect shown by asking. Just showing up and asking. You don't, may not be asking for a vote, but just showing up.
Well, and Governor, doesn't that go back to your point about the vast loneliness?
That's right.
People feel ignored and overlooked, and you go to them and say, "What do you care about?"
Right.
And it's like someone's been waiting to ask them.
Right. Or they're surprised, just, it's like sometimes I'm not sure. Let me think about it, but tell me about you. And then the organizer starts to make a cut, just like human beings do, just make a connection. And that becomes, over time, at its best, a relationship of trust. That relationship of trust then has to be stewarded and cared about and treated itself as a thing to respect and not something to exploit. And it can turn into, and again, I say this from personal experience, when I was running the first time in Massachusetts, into real political power. Turning that into organization is the big challenge right now, because there's a lot of enthusiasm. People want to be asked. They're interested in being asked. Turning it into organization is a project against the clock right now.
I love the way you talk about it, Governor. You make me a believer, and I don't believe in anything.
I know better than that.
Deval Patrick, former two-term governor of Massachusetts, current David R. Gergen Professor of the Practice of Public Leadership at the Harvard Kennedy School. Shakia Cherry Donaldson, founder and executive director of 1,000 Women Strong. It's a national organizing hub for Black women, built by Black women. Where can people find it online if they want to get involved?
Yes, all of our handles are 1K Women Strong on all social media platforms, and our website is www.1kwwomenstrong.com.
What a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much.
you.
I got to take a break, and Terry McAuliffe joining me, if you like. Stay with me. I'm Julie Mason. This is Sirius XM.
Thank you, Shakia. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you.
We got the stars coming now.
Yeah, how you, buddy?
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you.
How you doing, brother? What's happening, man?
Let us know.
Good to see you. Oh, my daughter, Sally. Mary! You know, he gave the commencement. It's your sister's graduation, Dory. He gave the commencement address. Colby. Talked about technology. Yeah, you're sick. Let's see, what a great event. Oh, my God. Let's get you here.
I'm going to just put it here.
Yes.
Governor, how are you? Nice to see you. I'm great. How are
Good
you?
to see you again.
Yes.
Right here?
Yes, Governor. That chair's a little crazy just because we're getting a couple people are slipping out of it.
Okay.
Oh, no, it's this one. We're doing that one? Okay. All right. Yes.
The buyers are in the house.
That's a good one. Okay, thank you.
Been great so far, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Terry McAuliffe joins me now. He was the 72nd governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. As governor, he focused on equality for all Virginians, enhancing quality of life, and building a new diversified economy that made economic opportunity a right, not a privilege.
Wow.
Governor, how are you doing?
Julie, great to be back
Terry
with you.
Silveri, it's
Fired
great to
up to
see
be here. I am ready to go.
Right? You've got an entourage.
Well, I got two of my daughters.
Oh, nice.
Mary, Sally McAuliffe.
Hi.
Yeah.
So much to discuss.
Yeah.
How have you been experiencing the convention so far? You've been to one or two of these before, I believe.
13.
Oh, man.
This is number 13. I've chaired a couple of these things. Chaired the National Party. Honestly, Julie, I've done this going back to 1976. Usually at one of these events, we have to spend 1 or 2 days coming together, the warring factions from primaries and platform fights. Zero this year. Since Kamala's gotten in the race, she's raised about $525 million, which is probably double or triple anyone has ever done in the history of our party. She's got 500,000 grassroots activists have signed up in 28 days. It's unbelievable. People are fired up in this arena.
And still very worried about Trump.
Should be. As you know, I'm the ultimate optimist, but I go back to, many of your listeners are so young, but I go back to 2000. Al Gore won that election, and they took it. And they worked harder. And they went down to Florida and shut counting booths. And Hillary won the popular vote in 2016. I remind you, Democrats in the last 8 presidential elections have won the popular vote in 7 of the 8. But we haven't gotten the prize. We got to win Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. Put that right there. But now we got Sun Belt states open, Arizona, Nevada. We got Georgia, North Carolina. I would rather be us than them because it's electric right now. People are excited. They don't want to vote for Trump and his extreme agenda. But you're right. It's going to be close. And if people like sit back and say, oh, you got to engage, you got to knock on doors, you got to make phone calls, donate $18, whatever it may be. Get in the game. I love her. I've known her when she was vice president. As governor, I was a big pro-jobs governor. I would talk to her about building the middle class, building small business. She's smart, she's tough, but she's a load of fun. And contrast that to the wackadoo we got on the other side, who, is a convicted criminal. I mean, it is what it is. An extreme agenda, rolling back women's rights. And I dealt with Trump. I was governor. I was chairman of the National Governors Association. I would talk to him about infrastructure, this, that. He'd always agreed, never do it. I was governor during Charlottesville when I spent a half an hour on the phone with him that day, begging him to go on TV and condemn. And I said, Mr. President, use the words white nationalists and neo-Nazis. Julie, not a difficult thing to do. He promised me he'd do it. I waited 4.5 hours, and he came out and said there were good people on both sides. The man has no moral core.
And you lost someone close to you, as I recall.
Yeah. I've known him forever. He was a Democrat his whole life. This whole thing was a charade. I think Bannon and Miller and Roger Stone got to him and said, hey, in 2015, we're going to build a wall, and we're going to make MAGA great. We're going to take this from Reagan. And, he's a salesman, and he's good at it. And he just goes out and sells the product. I believe a president has to have a moral core. As governor, I fought for things. Sometimes people were happy, unhappy, but I did what I believed was right and let the chips fall where they may. I'm the first governor to perform a gay marriage after the historic ruling. I was governor of Virginia. I created a record amount of jobs. I restored more felon rights than any governor in the history of our country. And for some people that was popular, others it was unpopular. It was the right thing to do. Trump doesn't do what he thinks is the right thing for the country. He does what he thinks is the right thing for him. Really?
There's no end of Democrats dumping on Trump, and I get it, but he's still. So this new polling from The Economist today: Harris 46, Trump 43. Half the country still loves the guy, or is at least going to vote for him.
Yep, and it's a good question. I've thought a lot about this over and over again because convicted felon, and you can go through all this other stuff. But as president, he didn't do anything to help the people. He did a tax cut for the wealthiest Americans. Didn't do anything for the middle class. He didn't do an infrastructure bill. He didn't do anything on health care. He spent his time, he got us out of the Iranian deal, which now Iran is, day, 2 month from having a nuclear weapon. We have no inspectors to do this. He spent his whole time bear hugging the North Korean dictator. So it's a good question. Why? I don't know if it's Trump. If Trump is not a vessel for people who are just feel disenfranchised. And, it's a hard thing, and that's why I'm excited about Kamala. I think she'll bring people together. I travel. I think I was in 26 countries, Julie, last year. There is nothing like coming back to the United States of America. We are the greatest nation on earth. And I'm proud. My dad was an Army captain. My son was a Marine captain. They fought for this country. We are the greatest nation. Everybody loves us around the world. We've got to stop this division in the country. Oh, you're a Republican, so I don't like you, or you're a Democrat. We got to get past that. We got to get back to the United States of America. We are the greatest. We are the greatest economy in the world. People, Ukraine, I've been to the front line. I was one of the first people to go to the front line after the invasion. I met with the soldiers. I met with the folks in Kiev. But for America, they wouldn't have a country today.
Right.
They love us.
Right. And what happens tomorrow?
Yeah.
The GOP ticket has not committed to future funding for Ukraine.
Well, and I got to tell you, and I'm going back over in September, the idea that for 3 months we did not give them, the Republicans would not give them ammunition. I know as a fact, I talk to the folks all the time over there, the damage that has done to the Ukrainian army.
It set them back.
This is a country that was invaded by a dictator, a democratically elected country, attacked. We're either a superpower or we're not. And we need to defend these folks.
I got to tell you, a lot of people love this shorter campaign.
I do too.
You do?
Yeah, I've always said, I've always liked the British system, make it short. And I like it like, if you don't like what you got, throw them all out.
Right.
Give everybody power. And if you don't like it, then toss them all out at the end of the day.
Right. And then we'll have another one in a few months.
Right. Yeah. And so, listen, I've been very close to President Biden. I've known him forever. I had him at my house. On June 18th, I raised $8 million for him. I had 650 people
in one day.
That's crazy. Yeah, when I sold it out, and then boom, the debate, and And then we went through this really tough time with the hand wringing and the bedwetting and the.
You must have been worried, though.
I was, but I was always optimistic at the end of the day that things would actually work out. And I thought to myself, it got to a point with the polling data that the president was always going to do the right thing. But a 100-day campaign is not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's enough time to introduce yourself, not enough time for people to get sick of you.
Right.
But, I mean, if she wasn't doing well in the polls, it wouldn't seem like enough time.
Yeah. Listen, I always believed that President Biden was going to win.
Really?
I always did.
Yeah.
Listen, Julie, at the end, we had a pathway, had to be Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Nebraska too. We're at 270. That's what we have to be. I remind everybody that he was 303 last time. He added, Nevada and Arizona to it. So we're fighting over about 1 million people in those 3 states who were undecided today. So we just had to make the argument. People didn't want to vote for Trump, but we got to make a compelling argument about lifting women's reproductive rights, lifting people up, not getting by, but getting ahead. That's what this convention's about.
Terry McAuliffe.
Boom, let's go. Bring it on.
Virginia.
Love it.
I got to wrap it up. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks to Patrick Faris and Ajani Foster. Real Clear Politics coming up next. I'm Julie Mason. Thanks for listening.
I gave him a full show on that list.
Good.
Did Sean Hannity that?
That's fantastic.
November, basically. I'll paraphrase it. Basically makes it $85 million.
Right, exactly. By going which way the wind blows.
He's pretty honest about it. And for that kind of money, Julie?
I mean, I like to think my integrity is not for sale. But
Hey, Terry.
You didn't tell me you were coming.
Huh? Sally, talk to Sally. You didn't tell we were coming down.
I know, we have, what's going on?
How you doing, man?
Good one, lady. You killed it for rolling with the punches.
yeah, that was great. Thank you. That was fantastic.
Where should I say? Let's see. Andy's usually there, and then it's like Tom Carl. How many? You want to just all right. There you go. Do we need one more? I think we need one. I'll slide that one over. You want to come on down? Probably.
My wife may not like it, but
Yeah.
you know
I'm gonna stand there. So with this over here. Yeah. Thank you. It's gonna be fun.
So what do I do? You can just wander around and do whatever you want. Yeah, we're gonna be here for an hour, so you can.
Oh, they said that one's you. Stairs, they get higher up.
Hello.
Oh, look at you squeezing in there.
Oh, yeah.
Cannon.
Usually I put Tom next to me so I can tap him.
No, we've had some people that.
Are we live? Uh-oh. So we're live streaming this on our website, so during the breaks, don't say anything that's career ending.
Good to know.
Yeah, that
could happen at any time.
That is a good
Really.
point, that it is live
During
all the time.
commercial breaks, we are still live on the website.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yes. Who's that?
Sure. Come on down.
Oh, hey, Jennifer.
Shift
So many
down
people.
a
How are you?
little, so we can get in the stream, baby.
You know, I looked. I got so many people on the show that I thought maybe I would just not do the clips today. And I just saw them like right before I went on. But thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. And hey, Emily, you're the unheard Washington correspondent, correct?
Perfect. Thank you.
Can you see the clock on the
Emily Jashinsky. She's going to spell her name for you right now.
It's JASHINSKY.
And it's the unheard, which is UNHERD, correct?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, that's yours. That's Andy's yours.
Okay.
That's brutal.
And it's the 20th, correct, everybody? Did I get that right? Yeah. Is it the 21st? Oh, see, I've still got yesterday's.
Don't retweet.
Wednesday, August 21st.
Oh my God. Oh, speaking of,
30 seconds.
have you seen?
What is it?
Yeah. Have you seen all these memes now of her?
Real rough.
There she is. Everybody look. Smile. All right. Here we go.
Welcome to Real Clear Politics for Wednesday, August 21st. I'm Andrew Walworth, and I'm joined by RCP President and co-founder Tom Bevan, Washington Bureau Chief Carl Cannon, White House reporter Phil Wegman, and unheard Washington correspondent Emily Jashinsky. And we are coming to you live from the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, where the weather has been spectacular. But Tom, the big story today, at least one of them is not here. It's elsewhere, and that is that Robert F. Kennedy, has suspended his presidential campaign, and he will address the country on Friday, and he may even endorse one of the two major candidates. What effect do you think it'll have, and what do you make of it?
Well, I mean, this is a huge development, and the reports are he's going to endorse Trump. And we just did a video on RFK and analyzed his role in this race right now. And, you know, prior to Kamala Harris becoming the nominee, I think there were a lot of disaffected Democrats that were parked in RFK land. And after she sort of became the nominee, a lot of them came home. And so his presence in this race was actually hurting Trump more. And if you look at these big seven battleground states, right, two of the states, Trump actually got a little bit of a boost when RFK was on the ballot. In Nevada and North Carolina, Trump already has a little bit of a lead there. Two of the states where Harris has little leads, in Wisconsin and Michigan, she got a little bigger boost. But it was Arizona and Pennsylvania where Trump currently has leads of like 0.2%, and I think 0.1 or 0.2% in both those states. RFK's presence on the ballot tipped that state in favor of Kamala Harris. So if he's gone, and if he endorses Trump, and the majority of his supporters migrate to Trump, that's good news for Donald Trump. That will give him a boost. And in a race that is this close, it could be decisive. It's a big deal.
And we have confirmation that RFK is expected to endorse Donald Trump for the dynamics that Tom just laid out there. It could be something that could tip this race. Obviously, RFK doesn't have a ton of support, but at the margins, it's significant. The folks who sort of made this deal happen were Tucker Carlson and Don Jr. They were the emissaries of the Trump-Vance campaign who were reaching out to RFK Jr., and it became an easier sell to bring him on board when President Biden stepped aside for Vice President Harris. Part of the reason why is, of course, as Tom pointed out, that the sort of voter profile for a RFK voter, they're much more likely to vote for a Trump or a Vance over someone like Harris or Walz, given his sort of background.
Tucker Carlson is an emissary of the Trump campaign? Is that? Don Jr. is, but Tucker Carlson.
Well, Emily,
making it happen.
Emily Jashinsky, welcome to the show. What do you make of today's news?
Well, thanks for having me. I agree. It's a huge development with what Tom said. And Tucker may not be a formal emissary of the Trump campaign, but he is very good friends with Don Jr. So you can sort of understand how that world was pushing a certain narrative to the RFK Jr. camp. And they've actually even shared donors. I mean, people like David Sachs have held fundraisers for both guys. So it makes sense. What's very interesting to me, though, is what this means for Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s future as a politician. It's possible he's secured some type of deal for a cabinet position. We don't know yet. For a czar position, we don't know yet. It seems
secretary probably.
The
right?
idea
FDA for sure.
Yes,
Go ahead.
the idea of him getting confirmed by any Senate is somewhat laughable. Actually laughable because indeed we are all laughing. But it's hard to it's hard to understand exactly what happens with RFK Jr. down the road, because his candidacy was actually built on the double hater vote, and that means hating not just Biden or the Biden campaign, but the Trump campaign. He was super critical of Donald Trump not draining the swamp, and that's basically gone, and I don't know how he ever makes that case again in his future.
Yeah, well, this is the latest twist in the Kennedy family saga. It's included bears and a lot of interesting things this time around, but Carl, give us your perspective.
Well, Bobby Kennedy Jr., he doesn't probably have a future in elective politics, but he didn't have a past in elective politics. His father, was senator from New York and leading presidential candidate when he was martyred in California in 1968. His uncle was president of the United States, but he'd never sought public office before. And this idea that the first thing you'll run for as president worked for Donald Trump, but it hasn't worked for anybody else. I mean, I guess Dwight Eisenhower. But I want to say one quick thing about this. We're leaving out the personal dimension. So Bobby Kennedy comes from a family of Democrats. But I was thinking of, there was a great Reason magazine cover story years ago, and a debate between Republicans and between libertarians. And the question before the House was, who should you vote for? If you're not going to waste your vote, you're going to vote Democrat, Republican. And they had a Democrat who made the case. It was Terry Michael, the old Paul Simon aide. And I forget who was the Republican person. But they interviewed Matt Stone, the guy, one of the
South Park?
Yeah, co-authors of South Park. He's from Boulder, Colorado. They're famously stoners. And he said something like, I think this was a direct quote. He said, well, I hate Republicans, but I really friggin' hate Democrats. And he didn't say friggin'. And so this is where Bobby Kennedy ended up. And the reason is because the Democrats went out of their way when they were convinced early in the year that he was going to hurt Joe Biden. They slimed him publicly and privately. They went to court to try and prevent him from getting on the ballot. They did all these things to thwart and undermine his campaign while claiming to be the party for democracy. And I think he just became very disgusted with the whole Democratic Party.
Nicole Shanahan, his VP candidate, she gave this interview where she talked about that. It was really remarkable. I mean, we kind of knew some of this stuff, but she said they'd even planted people inside their campaign to cause disruptions. It sounded like to basically fake create legal problems for them, alleged improprieties or whatever. I mean, she said you can't even believe the lengths that they went to sabotage their campaign. And she invested tens of millions of dollars in this campaign. So I think there is a lot of bitterness at the way that they were treated. And the Democrats, in their effort to protect Joe Biden, ended up driving RFK into the arms, it looks like, of Donald Trump.
But Phil, there were reports earlier this week that Kennedy was in conversation with the Harris campaign about maybe trying to get a position in her administration. So, A, have you heard that same rumor? B, does that cast any light on, what he's really trying to get done here?
Maybe he was making the rounds to see what might come next.
The highest bidder.
From what I've heard thus far, there haven't been explicit conversations about anything approaching a quid pro quo. I think that the most likely scenario is this personal frustration and personal anger at the very brutal rejection by the Democratic Party. It wasn't just an argument on ideology or on sort of differences of policy. Instead, it got pretty personal pretty quickly. And so I think after 6 or 7 months of that, it seems that RFK Jr. has made his choice, and he's going to throw in with Republicans.
And Emily, so we think he's going to speak on Friday. One of the reports I heard was that was designed in part to sort of try to take some of the air out of the bump that the Democrats are expecting out of this convention. Does it change the race at all in your view?
Significantly. I actually really think it does, because all of the polls, and you guys know this as well as everyone, show basically a close race right now. You know, you can get into all the nuances, but what we know is it's tight. And that means you're fighting over margins in swing states. And so that really matters. Ask Hillary Clinton about Jill Stein today, and you'll hear exactly why that really matters. So if you can convince a significant chunk of RFK Jr. voters not to stay home, and also to vote for Donald Trump, because RFK Jr. is himself making that pitch as a longtime Democrat, as a Kennedy Democrat. Trump is as good as aesthetics as anybody, and he understands, probably even better than the Kennedy campaign has, what you can make of the Kennedy brand. And if Robert F. Kennedy Jr. can get out there, not talk about vaccines or bears or whatever, and just say, I'm a longtime Democrat and I can't stomach Democrats anymore, so I'm voting for Trump. That's more powerful than I think a lot of people realize.
So Emily thinks that Bobby Kennedy will join the ranks of Ross Perot and Ralph Nader, these spoilers who the Democrats still gnash their teeth when they even think of.
He could have.
From my point of view, though, just as a personal note, I'm sort of saddened that Cheryl Hines will not be First Lady.
That's true. Cheryl Hines, the actress, is married to RFK Jr., and she would have been a fantastic First Lady. I think we can agree on that. Well, you're listening to Real Clear Politics on Sirius XM. I'm Andrew Waldworth. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the polls a little bit, so don't go away. We'll be back in just a second.
Nice. Was emissary the wrong word?
No.
I was so confused. I was like, oh no, was I repeating Tom's answer?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah, it's more like 5:30, but I told you. So he's on the second, third and fourth. So.
I'm just going to let him know. So
Okay.
Are you hearing all kinds of background noise more than usual?
Right now I am.
Okay.
I think what we're hearing is the
Can you
parade.
be professional? We're on set.
They said to get closer. He just physically pushed me away.
I saw that. I heard your.
What can you do?
Yeah.
What can you do?
Trying to get her off screen, out of the stream.
Emily,
Stealing the thunder.
a prophet is not appreciated in his own home.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're casting a shadow over me.
I know. I'm sorry.
Too eloquent.
I know.
Bringing in all these historical examples.
Getting compared to
Cultural
Jesus.
references.
Yeah, I know. Thank you, Carl.
You're welcome.
I was waiting for someone to do it. Felt inevitable.
So we're going to start with polls. And I'll
Polls.
go to you, Tom,
Polls.
and then we'll talk about Michigan.
The capital of the KKK.
Right.
Michigan.
What's the name of that poor town? It's been maligned by the
Howell.
Howell.
Okay, the polls.
Right.
Yeah, I gotta find it.
So it's the Economist YouGov poll. Right? I thought I asked you.
No, it was Rasmussen has a couple swing staters.
Oh, I'm pretty sure there's an Economist YouGov
No, there
poll.
is. Harris plus 3.
I was going to start with that. I might ask you about the general congressional poll too, just what that means and whether it's important.
Yeah.
I like
Yep.
closer. Okay. How about that? Is that better? Do you need me to speak up a little bit more on?
No, it's just like it felt really
Well, we don't want that.
Oh, very interesting.
30 seconds, guys. Welcome back to Real Clear Politics. I'm Andrew Walworth, and I'm joined by RCP President and co-founder Tom Bevan, Washington Bureau Chief Carl Cannon, White House reporter Phil Wegman, and Unheard Washington correspondent Emily Jashinsky. She's not unheard, she's from Unheard. We hear her loud and clear. And we're coming to you live from the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. And Tom, this is Real Clear Politics. We keep an eye on the polls. What's new in polling, especially I'm looking at this Economist YouGov poll.
Yeah, they only released a 5-way number, and so that has...
It's immediately irrelevant.
Which is, we'll be on Friday, pretty much. So, but at this point, what's interesting is, so the difference between the 2-way and the 5-way, there had been a difference there. It's basically shrunk to nothing, right? She's up 1.5 in the 2-way and 1.6 in the 5-way.
And so we should just say the 5-way includes the 3 independent
RFK
candidates.
Jr., Jill Stein, and Cornel West, they're now polling like at 0 or less than 1% for the most part. So that's, that is what it is. We had some other swing state polls came out. Rasmussen came out earlier with some polls in Wisconsin. It's basically the same thing. Very tight race, a point or two here or there. We also just got a poll from New Hampshire, which shows that race a little bit closer than I think people, it was close when Biden was the nominee. Then we got some polls that were, I think, 7 points. This is a 5-point lead for Harris, 52-47. There was a poll in Virginia that came out the other day that had her up 3 there. So again, that was those are still kind of just barely on the radar. If this is a euphoria that fades, I think those states we're going to have to really keep an eye on those. And the other interesting thing are the Senate polls, right? We had a poll. Democrats continue to do very well in these Senate races, except for the only one who has not done well is John Tester in Montana. He's behind. He's trailing in every poll that's been taken since June, since Tim Sheehy became the Republican nominee, basically. All these other Senate candidates in Arizona and Nevada and Wisconsin, Michigan, they have never trailed in a single poll that's been taken this entire cycle. I was just looking at it the other day. It's shocking, actually. Even when Trump was going up 5, 6, 7 points in some of these states, John Tester's the only, other than West Virginia, but we're not really counting that, the only incumbent who's facing a real challenge, and he is up against it.
And if Tester loses and the Republicans pick up West Virginia, as everyone expects,
51 votes.
51 votes. There you have it. So, the other number I was looking at there is the generic congressional number. I think that was another YouGov poll, 52-47. Just tell our listeners, what is the generic congressional number, and does it really matter?
Well, so this is a question that every pollster asks, and they say basically, if the election were held right now, today, would you vote for the Republican or Democrat? No names attached. That's why it's called generic, and it just gives you a sense of how
in Congress.
Yeah, for Congress, and it just gives you a sense of how the public and voters are viewing the two respective parties. It is a number that doesn't have a lot of relevance, like a lot of polls. The further out you get, but as you get closer to the election, it does have more and more relevance, because it'll tell you if one party or another is surging or sinking. That's an indicator that their candidates, both at the top, the presidential level, but also in the Senate and House level, are probably headed for a good night and will win a lot of these these close races.
And where are we on that? Where is that right now?
Well, the new congressional. The generic congressional from YouGov, which came out, was 52-47 for the Democrats.
But Rasmussen came out with one that had Republicans up 5. In our average right now, Democrats are up 0.3%. So it's basically tied.
Yeah, interesting. So, well, Emily, I want to ask you about this town of Howell in Michigan. Trump was there yesterday, making an appearance, and he talked about a bunch of things, mostly about crime. But the Harris campaign came out and criticized him for going there and called this town the KKK capital of the state of Michigan. This was from Alyssa Bradley, who is the Michigan Communications Director for the campaign. And she criticized him for rallying in that town. That town happens to be represented by a Democrat, happens to be a Democratic congresswoman, happens to be running for Senate in that state. So what do you make of that?
Andy, are you telling me that the Democratic Party has ties to the KKK historically? No. Of course, I mean, it's just ridiculous to smear anybody at this point with the KKK association when this town has Democratic representation. They have, presumably, like every little town in America, good people that are really sick of exactly what Democrats are doing here. And what's interesting to me is how flippant and casual the campaign strategy was to just go with word association because of some random historical fact about Howell. You know that you have some like DC staffer Googling Howell, Michigan, and coming up with this association. Yeah, this time we got him. And it just, there are real people and there are real communities who are behind this. And I'm not sure that it's productive. I mean, if anything, it seems counterproductive in a big swing state like that, where people in the area around are going to say, what are they talking about? Nobody wants that association. People take pride in their communities. So it seems like a pretty like obvious error.
Yeah,
it's also offensive, Andy.
What you think?
Yeah. Let's. I mean, I'll make.
This is the party of inclusivity.
No,
we tolerate different
decency.
views.
Don't forget decency.
Enjoy.
No, this on college campus. This would be called othering. The Democrats are now othering white people in Michigan. I can't quite figure out who they're aiming this at. And I would point out, as the Trump campaign pointed out, Joe Biden went to this same town in 2021 as president. And there wasn't a story. You can Google KKK and Biden and Howell. You will not find a hit. Well, you will after today.
Yeah.
But it's the hypocrisy of it, and just how nasty it is. This is the politics of joy. Yeah, we'll joyously smear you and slander you.
It was a lazy hit, and it was also counterproductive because Harrison Walls set Trump up for a spike. He walks away from the podium after he gets that question. You know that there was a Democratic flack in that reporter's ear, encouraging them to ask this sort of thing. And he asks the reporter, well, who was here in 2021? The reporter begrudgingly answers Joe Biden. I mean, this is the type of thing where Trump can say, Democrats are crying wolf. Once again, look at how ridiculous this is. And in this instance, it seems that the facts are on his side. The difference, of course, is that when Biden was there in Howell, Michigan in 2021, he was stumping on the Inflation Reduction Act. Trump was talking about policing, and that there was sort of another news hook in this Mad Libs, which was that there had been a racist demonstration in months past.
Yeah, so if Trump had mentioned inflation, Democrats would never brought it up.
Entirely different ballgame.
Does it have any resonance at the Senate race level? Because this is Alyssa Slotkin's district. She is now running against Mike Rogers. She's ahead in the RCP average by about 4 points. She's one of those Democrats who are doing pretty well, Tom. But can be helpful, I would think, to sort of name any town, for that matter, racist. And this is all based, I should say, there is some historic precedent behind this. There was a Grand Dragon from Michigan who lived there, and 20 years ago, a couple of decades ago, I think he had a meeting there or something. And that's the genesis of this whole story, Tom.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much hay Mike Rogers will be able to make of that. I haven't seen what Alyssa Slotkin, if she responded to this or has commented on it. I'd be shocked if she didn't kind of, just try to avoid it and not get involved, because to your point, she's going to need a lot of those voters if she wants to win in November. And so it would be kind of a tough bank shot maybe for Rogers. Especially if she doesn't engage. So I doubt it'll have much impact at the Senate level. Could be wrong.
And Trump's message there was about crime. Carl, is that a dog whistle? Did I miss something here?
I don't know. He talks about crime everywhere he goes. So do these people here at our convention in Chicago. They say crime's way down. How can Republicans even talk about crime? And there's members in the audience there who've been carjacked recently, some of them in Congress. Turns out that the FBI has stopped collecting crime statistics and reporting. The police departments in these three biggest towns in America don't report the data to the FBI. The best data on crime says that crime isn't down. But these politicians, they're talking about what's working for them. And Trump Trump is running. He is not running a joyful campaign. He's running a campaign. He's trying to scare the bejesus out of people. So he's going to talk about that anywhere he goes.
Which is why this was so confusing, because when you try and argue that the mundane is malicious, then the next time there is something that Democrats really want to take Trump to the carpet on, you can hand wave it away. And they already have plenty of material. I'm not certain that this was the layup that they expected it to be.
Yeah. Emily, this is you don't work for me. I hope you do at some point. But I've told my young reporters since Trump came on the scene in 2015, if there's ever a politician in the civic life of this country that you don't have to exaggerate what he says, mischaracterize what he says, lie about what he says, take out of context what he says, it's Donald John Trump. And yet they keep doing it.
Well, yeah, and it does end up having, there's this like substantive question where you end up inflating these definitions to the point where serious accusations have less meaning because people trust them less. So that's a serious problem. But even just politically, it is so deeply aggravating to people in Michigan that people who voted for Barack Obama, who spoke here yesterday, went out and voted for Donald Trump. Like, that's based on some of these smears. That's how much it resonates.
This is a guy who he said Mexicans were rapists. In his first public speech as a presidential candidate, he called a judge who ruled against him a Mexican judge. He's not racially sensitive, but he's not a guy you have to exaggerate. You have to smear whole towns to get Trump. You just quote Trump.
Well, Emily, we've only got a little bit of time left with you because you have to take off, but you're a recovering cultural reporter in your old job. And I'm just wondering, we've got a few minutes left here, how do you view the politics of joy at this? And what does that mean to you?
So I've gone back and forth on this. I think two things can be true. One, this is actually not 2008, but two, it is still pretty lit. Like, this is definitely a party. People here definitely are energetic about Kamala Harris, which isn't fake. For a lot of people, it's not fake. It's almost cathartic. Like, they're projecting their relief that they don't have to vote for Joe Biden onto Kamala Harris, who just a month ago, just shortly over a month ago, they were concerned wouldn't be good if something happened to Joe Biden. So it flipped on a dime, and there's a lot of projection going on, and maybe some of the enthusiasm will dampen. But I do think that this is very joyous, and I will say it's real. Republicans would be wrong to dismiss that it's not real, even though this is like the RNC, very stage managed. My one take on the difference between the RNC and DNC, the RNC feels like a political event. The DNC feels like an entertainment event. It sort of has more Hollywood glamour and all of that.
I think it was Benny Johnson or somebody I saw. They were wandering around outside the convention hall and asking people, do you like Kamala Harris, or what do you like about her? What has she done? And they couldn't name anything. There's nothing specific about it. It's all this sort of vibe. It was all this, as Emily said, relief and because they were so down in the dumps for so long, there's like this release of anxiety and energy and all that. But it's not based on anything specific that she's done or achieved. It's a really unique situation.
I asked one person that, and their answer was, well, she's made good decisions like picking Tim Walz. Like, that's it. To Tom's point.
Right. Well, the good vibes will continue here in just a minute. I'm Andrew Walworth. This is Real Clear Politics. I'm talking with RCP President and co-founder Tom Bevan, Washington Bureau Chief Carl Cannon. We've been talking with White House reporter Phil Wegman and Unheard Washington correspondent Emily Jashinsky, one of our favorites. We're going to be back in just a moment. Don't go away.
Where are you going?
Where's Addie?
Am I staying or am I going?
You're going.
I'm good.
Now wait, find Addie. She's supposed to take your spot.
Addie's taking my spot?
Go find her.
So do you guys know Jim Freeman? I've known Jim Freeman for about 150 years.
Carl Cannon. Good to know you, Jim. Addie's coming.
Oh, Addie's coming?
Addie's coming.
Yeah.
Is she in for the last two seconds? She's just in for the last two.
No, she's coming for the last two.
Both?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Both.
So should I put this one?
Yeah, I want her for both.
Okay.
I want a woman up here at all times.
You're okay in there?
Yeah, sounds good.
Hey, Jim, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. So you probably wonder what we're going to talk about.
Yes.
We're going to talk about Obama and Emhoff.
Okay.
From last night. And so...
Can you repeat that for Addie?
Oh, yeah. Oh. and that's sort of.
Can you hear?
I can hear.
Okay, so we're going to talk
you're
about 10 minutes. We'll do on Obama and Emhoff from last night, and then we're going to talk about the economic platform.
Okay.
And young voters. That's in this segment 4. So.
And I want to ask you about the downward
Go
revision.
to me first on Obama.
Oh,
Yeah.
I am not.
Good.
I'm not,
Like that seemed
Let's
like a
have
big
one.
freaking number to I
It is, but I've been doing
you
this
hear that?
stuff here.
Yeah,
so
I just don't know
dug
what
into
they are.
that.
And they're
Just
talking
like-
I don't.
long.
I think you'd probably know what I know about that
Just
at this
any-
point.
I'm
I mean,
just
I've
wondering
read
if let's
that.
get one.
Historically, it seems like a big number, and it's like, is that way out?
I know that Goldman has an
on.
explanation for why it's not. Oh, sorry. Is that good?
Yeah, that's better.
Do I have time to get my phone?
All right. The
Yes.
It's in my black bag, which Aaron would know. Yeah.
Let me see. How about?
Yeah, Doug would be good in an Obama clip.
Hey, you know what? How about that Obama segment? It says we have a broader idea of freedom.
That's to what you were saying yesterday.
Yeah.
Perfect. It's fine. It's good.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll just say, I'll say something like President Obama also talked about freedom. It's a different kind of freedom, and we were talking about it yesterday, and then introduce the clip. And we'll do that right before you speak. Yeah, I'm going to leave Doug alone because those are long clips, and I want to hear from my guests. So sometimes I'll just point to you.
Okay.
And sometimes someone will ask you a question.
I mean, but if you have something to say, like, raise your hand or even just interrupt. We want it to be a conversation, not a
interview.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a barely contained.
Only thing missing is the beer.
Except for Carl. Because if Carl gets going, the 10-minute segment, it's over.
Oh, you're Carl Cannon.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know you're writing. I didn't.
Yeah, that's
I
it.
didn't.
See,
Sorry.
that was the hint that you gave me. Oh, I know who that is. I do it in my writing too. Thanks for joining us.
No, thanks. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
And by the way, we are live streaming on the website, so even when we're on commercial break, we're live.
Okay, on video too.
On video too.
Okay,
so
that's good to know. Okay, sorry.
Welcome back to Real Clear Politics on Sirius XM. I'm Andrew Walworth, and I'm talking to Carl Cannon, Tom Bevan, my usual co-anchors here. And we're joined by Jim Freeman from the Wall Street Journal and Adi Vondrail from Real Clear Politics. And Carl, yesterday we had a bunch of speeches, including both the Obamas and Doug Emhoff, the future and perhaps the future first husband, I guess.
First gentleman, they're called.
First gentleman.
They would call him if she wins.
So, former First Lady said this: something wonderfully magic is in the air, a familiar feeling that's been buried too deep for too long. You know what I'm talking about? It's the contagious power of hope. She added, saying, America, hope is making a comeback. And Barack Obama, he talked about freedom, something we talked about yesterday, but a different kind of message. Listen to this. This is just a clip of him from last night.
Let's get over a little bit. You're 5.
Well, Andy, So Andy, I was listening to this last night, and I thought, wait a minute. He listened. They changed. The speechwriters listened to our program. This is the exact point. We should give credit where it's due. This exact point that Andy was making yesterday is that, the Republicans criticize the freedom agenda, saying, well, they believe in censorship. How free is that? But Andy made the point, and it's right, that there's freedom to do things. There's freedom from things. This is the point you made. And the Democrats are saying, first of all, it's freedom from getting your kid mowed down by an AR-15 in school, but also a freedom of thought. I thought it was a very sound explication of modern liberalism. And when we were walking in here today in the convention center, I ran into Van Jones. Addie saw him too, and he very thoughtful commentator on CNN. If you don't know who he is, and he used to work for Barack Obama. And he tried a line on me. I'm sure he's been saying all day. I said, "What'd you think?" He said, "Obama was great," and so her husband wasn't bad either. And so, and he and I then in the sun, we had to get over in the shade because we had such a spirited debate over who was better, Barack or Michelle. And Barack Obama began his speech with a nice line, self-deprecating humor. I'm the only one stupid enough to go after Michelle Obama. And it was good as far as it went, but the longer Obama spoke, you remembered the magic of this guy. And I remember, and I was thinking, listen, let's just be honest. Michelle's great, but Barack Obama is the greatest orator in American public life right now, and has been for a long time. That was my reaction to the speech.
Jim, what do you think?
No criticism of the oration, the oratorical skills. This attempted redefinition of freedom, which used to mean the individual being autonomous. Now they're attempting to redefine it into government doing things for you and therefore setting you free, I guess. But it's pretty tough to take this rhetoric. And that line you played where Barack Obama talking about how his party and he's about the freedom in how we worship. This is a man who waged a years-long battle against a group of nuns. They're called the Little Sisters of the Poor, and his government was determined to force them to buy contraceptives and other related services that their conscience dictated they not purchase. So, what meaning do any of these words have now when we listen to these speeches?
I mean, it was classic Obama, right? He is amazing and charismatic and all of that, and his speeches always sound really good when you first hear them, and then if you actually sit down and think about them for a second and sort of scratch the surface, you're like, wait a minute. This is the guy who, by hook or crook, passed Obamacare, right? Remember, You Can Keep Your Doctor was declared the lie of the year, okay? Pretty sure that Obama was supportive of this administration when they mandated vaccines for all workers in the federal government and fired them if they didn't get those vaccines. How's that for freedom? So, it's just, it doesn't stand up to scrutiny. It's like one of those, it tastes good going down, but it's empty calories at the end when you think about the substance, as Jim was just mentioning. And the other thing is, and this is the conundrum that Democrats find themselves in, Michelle Obama, Hope is making a comeback. Hope is making a comeback. Where's Hope been for the last 4 years? What is she actually saying?
Hey, Addie, these guys are beating the shit out of me here. Can you defend me here?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
Well, I think what the Democrats are doing with this, what Barack Obama was doing, is kind of a reclaiming of freedom, of liberty. I feel like these words that are in the Declaration of Independence have kind of been divided up among the parties, right? Like Republicans get freedom and liberty and Democrats get equality, and that's what they've tried to run on. And maybe the Democrats are a little bit sick of that. As far as Michelle Obama goes, she was my highlight. I don't know, maybe that's because I'm a woman, but I thought what Obama said about having to follow her, I felt for him. I felt for him because I thought she engaged the crowd in a way that, in a more impressive way than he did. She stared right into the camera. She was funny. She was powerful. And I kind of felt like the whole arena had stars in their eyes and just a little bit wished that she was the one primetime Thursday night.
I believe that. Listen, I think actually the most impressive speaker last night was not named Obama. I thought Doug Emhoff did a fantastic
Doug
job.
Emhoff, yeah.
I haven't really seen him give a lot of big time speeches before, and he really did. I thought a great job of sort of humanizing their relationship and personalizing it, and yet getting across what he wanted to about Kamala Harris and her character and all that. I thought he did it. I was really, really impressed with him. I thought it was one of the best speeches I've seen all week.
What'd you think, Andy?
No, I thought Doug Emhoff was great. I thought it was a sort of a defense of the blended family and humanized Kamala Harris in a way. I thought it was effective. Jim, he did sort of. He was introduced by his son, and his daughter was in the hall as well. She's a model and an influencer, I guess. We're going to talk about influencers in a second. But did you get Kamala fever from that?
I don't want to pick on him because I do think it's hard for people who don't do this for a living to talk about their family in a personal way in front of a hall full of people and millions on TV. So I thought it seemed a little awkward, but I'm not arguing with any of the content in terms of his description of his affection for his family, and I'm sure it's genuine. I just think as a TV presentation, I probably, for obvious reasons, would think the Obamas are a little more effective, a little more seasoned.
Well, there was one thing. He's an entertainment attorney, we should say, so he does know a little bit about this. And Addie, it's sort of like they're talking about this sort of dad vibe through this convention. Did he give you that sort of positive dad vibe?
Yeah, he did, and I think they're trying to run on that. That's like their whole thing with Tim Walz, right? Is like, hey, look at this guy and his kids doing bunny ears behind him. How sweet is this? Yeah, I like the story about the voicemail. Yeah. I thought that was
memorable.
It was cute. It was humanizing.
For those who missed the speech, he talked about when he first asked Kamala Harris out at 8:30 in the morning over the phone, and he left this bumbling voicemail. And in case you missed the speech last night, and she makes him listen to it on their anniversary every year, and the 10th anniversary,
which is tomorrow,
which is coming up. Right.
But I actually thought, Jim, that was what was appealing to me about it. Is the Obamas are so good and they're so smooth and camera ready and all that. The fact that he was kind of awkward and it was, made it authentic to me, and I thought a little bit more, real.
There was one important thing, that they did, though, and we should mention it. I don't want to mention it. We've mentioned it once on this show before. There's this story that broke. The press won't touch it. I don't think ABC's mentioned it. I don't know that the Washington Post, New York Times have, that Doug Emhoff's first marriage broke up when he had an affair with their nanny, and she got pregnant. And this is a thing. If this was in Trump world, we'd be reading it on the New York Times front page every day for 6 months. I preempted you there, Tom. I knew you were going to say that about the double standard. But I thought they handled that in a really skillful way and also a very human way. And they had the son introduce the father, and he said, my parents split up when I was a kid, and it was tough. And they went on and explaining it that way, and then pointing out that the families are now all close and they've gotten over it. And you found yourself thinking, well, every family has trouble. I thought it was exceedingly
not
effective.
Every family has trouble quite like that.
Well, you never knocked up a nanny?
I have not that. Well, I'm not going to touch that.
That's a non-denial denial.
Listen, I'm just wondering why, since one of the, basically they spent all of Monday sort of touting, the abortion rights and the freedom of women. I'm surprised that wasn't more, they weren't more out forward, like celebrating that fact.
Tom, come
too far?
Yeah,
a little too far, but that's okay. You're listening to Real Clear Politics on Sirius XM. They do call her Mamala. That was another interesting
Yeah, well, we knew that, but that was sweet.
Yeah. Anyway, you're listening to Real Clear Politics on Sirius XM. I'm Andrew Walworth. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about what's going on here in Chicago at the Democratic National Convention.
It was sweet when the kids called her Mamala. It was a little creepy when Drew Barrymore did.
That was so bad.
So bad.
So bad.
We're good, baby. We're rolling.
Bring us a beer.
So, Jim, when we come back, I'm going to go to you about the platform and the Bernie Sanders connection you made. I think that's kind of interesting.
Cool.
Bernie.
And then, Addie,
Bernie kind of threw a little shade on J.B. Pritzker, didn't he?
I missed that.
So, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think the Creator Lounge is the only place in United Center you can get a coffee. Maybe backstage.
Is that true?
There you go. Good.
Wow.
See? All right. Yeah, we could. And young voters, right?
Yeah. Well, that's creator alone. Young voters, that sort of thing. She's not just a reporter on young things.
No, that's true.
A reporter to talk about anything.
What time are we coming back?
I think we're coming back in about a minute.
To what, 56,
Jennifer,
57,
are you there?
Catherine? What's our out?
Hey, Jennifer, can you give me the hard out?
Oh. I can't hear you.
56:30?
I didn't hear that. Is that it? 56:30? Okay.
56:30.
Can you see?
I can. I can. This show went fast.
Yeah, it was
I feel
fast
like we just
today.
got started.
You need more.
Yeah. We could do another hour.
It helps to have 5 people.
I was just going to say, Carl, you must be feeling like you haven't gotten to say 2 words. Haven't even cleared your throat yet.
There's 10 minutes left for me, right?
Yes. Carl's going to start us in
Everybody step
1860
aside.
and walk us through Chicago. You haven't had your chance to do that yet.
We were joking with Carl.
Mention Clinton.
Like last week on the radio
Mention
show.
Clinton speaking.
It's just us. And he
right.
went,
Tim
went off
Walz.
on like a,
right?
like a
that's
3.5 minute
do that
jag. Like,
just save a minute for yourself.
exposition on Henry Cisneros and like his history.
You know what I'll do? I'll say
like,
to you at the last thing I'll say. What are we looking forward to tonight?
Yeah. Should I talk about Henry Cisneros?
Yeah,
absolutely. Please, yeah.
Well, didn't he? He knocked up the nanny.
No.
No? What did he do?
I'll tell you later.
30 seconds.
I should have remembered that from the story you told.
You were too busy laughing.
My eyes were glazed over by that point. Stopped absorbing any information.
I think we're live, on our website.
I know. We are.
Welcome back to Real Clear Politics on Sirius XM. I'm Andrew Walworth. We are coming to you live from the Democratic Convention in Chicago. And I have with me Tom Bevan, Carl Cannon, Adi Vondreli, and Jim Freeman from the Wall Street Journal, old friend and frequent guest on the show.
Thank you.
Jim, I know you've been looking closely at the Democratic National Committee's platform. What do you make of it, and what does it remind you of?
It's a lot of government across the landscape of society, and it looks a lot like the regular updates that Bernie Sanders puts out as chairman of the Senate Health and Education Committee. Everything is broken in the private economy, and it needs a government fix and an intervention. And I think it raises the question of what is he doing here, speaking at this convention? As far as I'm aware, he has never joined the Democratic Party. He is not their candidate. He did not run this year, and yet he was given a primetime speaking gig, and I think that tells you, sadly, of the influence, even outside the Democratic Party, that he's exerting on not just the platform, but I think the agenda that you'll actually see enacted if Kamala Harris wins.
And when you read that platform, and do you think the party is moving actually left from where it was 4 years ago?
I think it clearly has moved. We're sort of waiting for the pendulum to swing back. You've seen it in certain areas where Democratic politicians have learned not to say defund the police anymore, for example. But is it really moving back in a big way? I talked to Dean Phillips today. He's the Minnesota congressman who challenged Joe Biden, and he briefly, if they'd listened to him earlier, he was saying that you need to replace Biden about a year ago. He might be the nominee today.
Or maybe Gavin Newsom would be the nominee.
Yeah, a lot of things could have happened. But anyway, so I was asking him about price controls, and this is the incredibly destructive idea that's failed all over the world and created so much misery that unfortunately Kamala Harris is pushing now with her suggestion that we need a new federal ban on price gouging, whatever that means, however they're going to define what price is too high in the food industry, which, as you know, has very low margins to begin with. It's kind of an odd industry to pick to say people are profiteering, whatever that means. But anyway, so I asked Phillips. He's against it. He said he would not have counseled Harris to go there. And I asked him, how many people agree with you in this building? And he said among elected Democrats that are his colleagues, he thinks about 80% of them know that it's not the right thing to do. And so he doesn't think it's going to become law, but he wasn't sure because he said that there is a powerful grassroots pressure to go left on issues like this, and he's not entirely sure that they would withstand that. So I think whether we get that policy, which has impoverished people all over the world, most recently and obviously in Venezuela, or not, kind of depends on how many progressive leftists end up in the House and the Senate after this fall.
Yeah, Tom, this is the sort of one policy statement she made before this convention started, but I haven't heard a lot about it during the convention.
Yeah, it got terrible reviews, even from the Washington Post and a lot of folks across the board. Obama's former economist, so it got dropped pretty quickly, and there were a lot of people suggesting, "Oh, this is never going to become law anyway, so don't even worry about it." This is just sort of campaign rhetoric, which I guess on one hand is a good thing, on the other hand is kind of not a great thing. It's very cynical. And the question is whether she actually believes it or not.
Yeah.
But it did go away pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, Addie, you have been at the convention. This is your first convention, I think, is it?
It is my first convention.
And what do you think?
Sensory overload. Very cool. Very exciting. It's like Coachella for political nerds.
Really?
That is good.
I always imagined Coachella would be more fun.
Well, Addie wrote a story for us on today's Real Clear Politics. I urge you to all go look at it. It's about influencers and how they're getting better treatment than the ink-stained wretches of the past.
Yeah, there is a lounge here just for the influencers.
She got in.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let you and me in.
Yeah, we can't even get in there. What's going on in there?
Okay, so what I think is absolutely crazy, it's an untapped market. 15,000 caffeine-addicted media journalists. Not one place you can buy coffee in United Center. But there is free coffee in the Creators Lounge.
Tell us what creators are.
Creators are people who have a following on social media.
TikTok, typically?
Typically TikTok, because short visuals do really, really well. This kind of either gotcha content. Some people dance. Some people do really over-the-top animated impassioned speeches, stuff like that. So I guess the DNC posted a while ago on its website, on its socials, hey, come apply and we'll give you access. So there are about 200 content creators and influencers here at the DNC with press access.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to wrap it up, but
let's talk about what's going on tonight.
Thank you, Carl. Are you going to host the Thursday show or am I?
Well, you're supposed to. I'm trying to get you to comment more.
Okay,
the easy job's what you do.
I'm trying to keep the ball moving. Anyway, we've got 30 seconds left. What are you going to look for tonight?
Well, look. Tim Walz is speaking tonight, the vice president. One assumes he's been put on notice. Please, no more new exaggerations about your personal story. What I'm looking for myself is to Bill Clinton's speech. I was with him here, covering him in 1996 when he accepted the nomination for his second thing, and he's going to speak. This is his 10th straight convention.
Yeah, well, that's going to be it for us. This is Real Clear Politics. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow night.
All right. Done.
Woo. It was a fun show. Yeah. Addie, good one.
All right.
Let's go. Let's go.
I didn't want you to get cut off. Sorry for the waving hand.
Yeah, no, I was. Yeah.
Well, that's that.
Jim, come here. I got to get a selfie with Jim.
No, I guess it's.
Can you take a picture of me and Jim?
I'll take it.
I'm going to send.
Yeah, get over here. Jim, take your picture.
I'm going to send. I want to send a picture to your dad, and Mom.
Thanks. Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Great. Hey, thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
You too.
When are you heading back?
Friday afternoon.
Oh, you're here for the whole.
Yeah, I came in Monday evening, so I haven't tortured myself through the whole thing.
Right.
But,
do you stick around at night, or do you?
yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
I'll probably maybe tomorrow night. Probably gonna. I think some of my colleagues are leaving, so I'll probably have a home floor pass tomorrow night. So I'll probably hang around for a bit. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I always think I'm going to stick around. Thanks, Eddie. I always think I'm going to stick around, and then it's like, you know what? I could go watch this in my.
Well, there's an argument that you really should watch it on TV because that's what matters is how it comes across. But I guess there are things you get in the hall in terms of sometimes it's hard to tell on TV exactly which lines really land in the hall, and that can be instructive. But yeah, no, TV is probably better to watch a lot.
Anyway,
you enjoying it?
You know, I had the best gig because I just have to do this. So
yeah, cool.
I come here like an hour before. I figure out what the show's going to be about. And then just turn it on, let it go. Yeah, it's fun.
Hey, cool. Yeah.
Excellent. But I'm doing this, and then the other thing I'm doing is for Brett Baer. I do. We have a series on Fox Stations. One on Fox Stations. So I do 5, we do twice a year basically, 5-part documentaries with Brett. We just finished one on political parties. We do a history of socialism, and that's a dream because he's so busy. They promote it well. So between that and this, I'm trying to ease my way out of business.
It's fun. Yeah. Nice stuff.
Well, good. Tell your dad. I'll send this picture to him, but tell your dad and Mom I say hello.
Thanks.
Say that.
I was on the other side of the